I've never recorded someone vaping. Chris, do that again. Okay, Starbucks run, check. Friday the 13th fan podcast host Chris Saunders, check. Oh! Welcome to the Podcast Engineering Show. This is session number 23, and here's my band and Barry.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome. We're back. I'm not a singer. Oh, that's right. I'm not a singer, and I won't try. We're happy you're here. I'm happy you're here. This is the Podcast Engineering Show, and I actually have an outline for my intro that I should talk about. My name is Chris Curran. I produce podcasts for Forbes, Dun & Bradstreet, and select business authors and companies. I'm an audio engineer. Each week on this show, we bring you podcast production techniques on a silver platter, right? We get down and dirty. We talk shop about audio engineering, about audio. We talk to podcast producers, engineers, and other specialists. I have a background in audio engineering in the music business, actually. I have album credits and all that cool stuff. But since entering podcasting about 4.5 years ago, I've noticed a huge lack of audio skills in podcasting. A lot of the fundamentals are just, they're not there. That's why this show exists. Because I'm starting a school, actually, called the Podcast Engineering School. And that's going to teach podcasters how, the fundamentals of EQ, compression, mastering, all the things that we need to do to make sure that our podcast sounds really good so it doesn't turn off listeners. So that's what this show is brought to you by, the Podcast Engineering School. I had my pilot training session this past Sunday. It went pretty well, but it went really well in terms of now I know what I want to do this fall. I'm going to offer classes. They are going to be virtual, because a lot of people want to attend, and I don't know who's, not everyone's willing to fly to Denver or Colorado Springs to learn about EQ and compression for a day or two. So I'm going to do it all virtual. Anyway, of course, Barry's with me here. Barry, can you put up your fader, please, Barry?
Yeah, oh yeah.
All right, there we go. See, if you ever notice what that gap is when I ask Barry questions and you don't hear anything, it's called a fader is down. Anyway. We need to know, Barry, Barry, you've had guests on your show before. Well, now I'm making it up that Barry had a show. This is so stupid. Barry, on your show, you've had guys who are hosts of Friday the 13th fan podcasts on your show before. What are we going to need this episode with Chris Saunders to really make it worth it?
You're going to need a couple of horses. A couple of mules.
Right? See, I don't know. Is that the solution to everything, Barry? Maybe it is. So Chris Saunders is here with me. He's the host of Return to Camp Blood.
Yes.
It's a Friday the 13th fan podcast. He's been doing it for almost a year and a half. We're going to get into his audio and everything, but let me ask you this, Chris. What kind of a hockey mask does Jason wear in the movies? Do you know?
Well, it's a modified version of a old Red Wings mask. At least the original one was. They've, not to get too into that, but they've gone through a lot of different iterations of it over the years. Yeah.
Do you own one?
Of course. I own a couple.
All right, we need a picture, dude. Can you take a picture? I need a picture of you in the mask to put on this episode. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah. Gotcha.
All right. There we go. And yeah, Barry, have you ever heard Chris Saunders' show when he's not wearing the mask?
There's no activity, no giggle, no nothing.
See, the mask makes a difference. So you produce your own show, and we're going to talk about it. So let's get into it. By the way, you and I met because you listened to this show, and you wrote me a note saying, hey, it's a cool show, and you told me about your show, and I was like, wow, Friday the 13th movies. I remember in the early 80s when I was like 11 years old or something, me and my friend Steve would, there was a few years there where we used to go to the movies, like every year or every time that a new Friday the 13th came out. This is back when it was like 1, 2, and 3, part 1, part 2, part 3, before it got to part 96. We used to go to the movies when, your parents would have to drive you to the movies. Is that when you started watching those movies, Chris?
Oh, I think you're a little older than me.
Oh, okay.
I didn't I think I didn't see one in the theater until I was grown, until I was an adult. That was, I think, Freddy versus Jason, when that came out. That's the first one I saw in the theater.
Really?
But when I first joined the military, I went on a mission to buy all the DVDs, and I think I stayed up for like 2 or 3 days straight watching Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. And yeah, that's not really conducive to, well, I won't tell you what I was doing, but it's not conducive to work in general.
Yeah, binging on things doesn't usually go well with other things. All right, so we start with the speed round. We want to know what shows you produce and engineer, and I guess it's just the one show for now, right?
Yeah, for now. There's some other things in the works right now, but I don't want to give it away just in case it doesn't happen.
Okay. Fair enough. And the speed round question number 2 is basically tell us your workflow and your hardware. Just give us the quick overview, because after you give us the quick overview, then obviously we're going to step through each part and really talk about what you're doing, how you're doing it, and have some fun with that. So give us the quick overview. Let's say you're getting ready to do a session. You're almost ready to record. Step us through it.
Well, I try to keep my setup pretty simple. But basically, we normally record the show with at least 3 people, so myself and at least 2 other people. But we do it through Skype, and we use Pamela's Skype recorder, which is ironic given the fact that we do a Friday the 13th show. So for all you Friday fans, Pamela's Jason's mommy.
Really? Yeah, oh, that is cool.
So it fits. However, Pamela is flaky sometimes, so we have to do some other stuff occasionally, but generally we use Pamela.
Okay. That's awesome.
And I record at pretty much the highest resolution it'll go, which isn't that high. So you're looking at 40K hertz at 16 bits. Not mono, stereo, with me panned hard left and everyone else panned hard right. And then I import it into Audition and do my thing in there, and then export it as an MP3 and then post it.
Okay. All right, cool. So this is good. So let's start, because I haven't talked about Pamela yet, and I don't know much about it. So let's start with your microphone. What kind of setup do you have there?
Well, me and all of my co-hosts now, we all use the ATR 2005, which is pretty similar to the 2100 that you're always talking about for decent lower end mics. We're all like broke, so
there you go.
But I really dig the sound. Obviously, it doesn't compare that well to some of the higher end mics, but it definitely is better than a lot of other things I could be using.
Oh yeah, no, that's the mic. What is it, $60-$70? I mean, for that money,
yeah,
the way it sounds is that's, you're doing really well there, and anyone who has that kind of setup is doing well.
Yeah, and you can find this thing on sale for like $30 occasionally. Like when people ask me what mic they should get, I tell them the AT 2001 or the AT 2100 or the ATR 2005. Grab whichever one is cheaper, because they're pretty comparable to each other, and they're both USB XLR. For especially starting out, they're perfect for that.
Do you know the differences between them? Are there any differences? Color?
Yeah, one's gray. The 2100's like silver gray, and the 2005's black.
Okay.
I know they're sensitive to different frequency ranges, but aside from that, I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Different capsule, different frequency response for sure. Barry, have you ever used an ATR 2005?
Oh, forget it.
Yeah, he likes that one. By the way, there's this guy Josh who's going to be coming on the show. He loves Barry so much. When Josh comes on the show, I'm actually going to break out some new Barry clips that no one's ever heard, because I have a lot more. I always use the same like 3 or 4. I have a lot more. Right, Barry? There's a lot more of you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So there it is. So, all right. So you have decent mics. I'd say good mics, definitely good mics. And you plug just USB right into the computer, right?
Yeah. Well, it depends. My roommate also does the show with me occasionally. So when he is recording with me, I break out my Behringer XENYX XENYX 1204 USB mixer, So that way we can both run on the same Skype account. That way, less bandwidth and all that stuff. So when I have somebody at my house, we use the mixer. But if it's just me recording, I just do straight USB.
So you have two of these mics, the ATR 2005?
He is the only one that doesn't have one.
Oh, what does he use?
You know what? I don't even know what it is. It's not bad sounding, but okay. It's just a straight XLR, which is another reason why I have to use the mixer when he records.
Got it, yeah. Well, also, plugging two USB mics into one computer is, well, first of all, you used to not even be able to do that, but apparently now there's a way you can have multiple USBs in one computer.
Yeah, it takes some finagling, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm with the podcast engineering school programs that I'm going to be doing in the fall. I'm looking for like a webinar system or like an online learning platform where I can stream audio, preferably in stereo, and also where I can maybe like play with audio, like EQ and compress audio on my machine as I'm presenting, and the participants should be able to hear what I'm doing to the sound. So like if I'm adding, if I'm like, hey, this is what 3 kilohertz sounds like, watch your volume here because it'll hurt your ears. And then I put it up. I want them to hear it. And I don't know, I'm trying to find a system that will do that. But the thing is, I also need to have a mic on me. So I need my voice and one of my programs in my computer to go through whatever webinar system I'm using, and I'm like, how the hell do I route that within the computer? Anyway, I know there's a way, and probably on a Mac it's easier. That's what I'm assuming.
I have no idea. I've never even looked into that.
Right? Yeah, so that's a whole nother show. All right, so you on your computer, you have Skype up, because that's how you're connecting with your other two co-hosts. And your other two co-hosts on Skype are in different places, right?
Oh, yeah. A normal show is 4, but
okay.
All of us are in different states.
Okay. So then on your machine, you have Skype up, obviously, and you're on a 4-way call. And then you also have Pamela running. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Now tell me about Pamela, please.
Well, when I first started doing the show, we were recording ourselves locally, and we were talking to each other over like a phone conference call service.
Right.
But I kept dropping a lot of frames, and I couldn't get it to sync well. And so,
Barry, have you ever had to mix anything like that? And what did you think of it at the time?
It's a mess.
Yeah, it's a mess.
Yeah, it was terrible. And then we found this Skype recorder called Pamela. When it's working, it works great.
Oh no.
Yeah, like I said, it's really really flaky, especially now. So actually, we're currently in the market for something else. We did our last episode with Google Hangouts. That went well, but it only gave me one track to mess with, which I guess is okay, because we've gotten pretty good about like mic control and stuff like that, and muting ourselves when we have to cough or whatever. So it's not been that difficult, but yeah.
Well, I have to say the Cast system that you and I are on right now, and this is the platform I use for my business for fractal recording when I produce shows for all kinds of authors and Forbes and everything. I use Cast, and Zencastr is a similar one. These types of platforms, this is almost necessary these days because of internet glitching, but they allow up to 4 participants in a session. So you and your 3 other guys could have one Cast session. And this is the thing. I got to talk to these people at Cast because I'm promoting this so much.
I know.
I need like an affiliate link or something. Jeez. Anyway, you can have all 4 people on Cast and record something, and obviously record yourself locally, kind of like you do now with Pamela. Yourself on the left and everyone else on the right.
See, that's
just as a backup.
That's the weird thing about Pamela, though. Because the recording I get of myself from Pamela is not me locally. At least, because if it was, it should sound a whole lot better, even plugged into the USB. So, it does some crazy, screwy thing where I guess it grabs, all of the audio right from Skype rather than recording me locally and recording my guests through Skype. So it's really weird the way that it does it.
All right. Well, here's a solution for you.
Cast?
The Behringer... Actually, no, almost. You know what? I'm not going to talk about them until they sponsor my show. Anyway, probably not. Anyway, so your Behringer mixer. Well, let me ask you this.
And I even have a Zoom H1.
That's what I was going to ask you. Wait, H1? What is it, from 1974?
It was cheap, man. I'm working on like an extremely shoestring budget here, which is a budget of 0.
It's an H minus 3.
We actually have a couple Patreon people that help us out every month, but my budget is not that big. So the Zoom H1, at least for now, we'll have to do while I learn how to do all this mix minus stuff.
I see.
And I even have everything. I even have all the cables. I have everything that I need to do it. But yeah,
all right.
I'm lazy, I guess.
Take a Saturday. Make sure you have some refills for your vape thing there, and hang out in your studio and just tear everything apart and put it together and try it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't have like a dedicated studio space, and my kids, they love to plug things and unplug things and turn knobs and press switches.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, right. Oh my God. You need like a locked room.
Yeah, one day.
Wow. All right. Well, that's what I was going to suggest. If you did use your Behringer and, your microphone locally goes into one channel of your mixer and the computer with Skype on it goes into a different channel, then you could record yourself locally and you could record the Skype signal of everyone else on one channel, and it would all be synced up, and your voice would be the clear local quality. Yeah, it is. So, but like you said, you need to set up the mix minus thing, which is not hard to do.
Well, I found a tutorial that I guess Ray Ortega did a while back, and our mixer is similar but not the same, and there's a bunch of stuff that's labeled different, and I was trying to follow that, and it's just confusing. It can be anyway. No, I have successfully got it set up, but like I said, with my kids always wanting to come in here and mess with stuff, I don't even have the mixer set up all the time. So,
right, yeah, and I'll talk about pain in the butt. If you have to set everything up and then tear it down every time you record, oh my God, you'll do that like twice. After the second time, you'd be like, no thanks.
Yeah,
you just won't do it. All right, so then you record it in Pamela.
Yes, and so the highest resolution that the thing can record at is 48 kHz at 16-bit stereo.
It's a WAV file?
Yeah, I have it recorded as a WAV file.
Yeah, that's good. That's great, actually.
I'd like to get it. I'd like to record higher than that, but that's the limitation to Pamela, so that's what I do.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. Look, you're doing 16-bit 48 kilohertz.
Yeah.
I mean, I record, and a lot of people record same 48 kilohertz, but with 24-bit. So there's more bits, which means there's more dynamic range and headroom and all that.
Yeah.
But honestly, 16-bit is fine, man. For podcasting, I mean, please.
Yeah, I mean, the final product is, I think I exported at 41K 16-bit mono. So, yeah.
Right,
MP3. It's right in there anyway.
Yeah, all right. So you got recorded on Pamela. You got yourself on the left and everyone else on the right. And then what do you do with it?
Yeah, well, I import it into Audition, and then that lets me export the stereo track into 2 mono tracks.
Right.
And this is a throwback to when I used to record music back in the day. I normalize everything to -1 dB.
Okay.
Because that's what I used to do with this Turtle Beach program called Digital Orchestrator Pro. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it was one of those programs that came bundled with a sound card back in the day.
Okay.
Anyway, so I do that. I do a noise reduction. I run Audition's noise reduction, which usually cleans everything up pretty well. Like I said, I don't have dedicated studio space, so running the noise reduction is definitely a must most of the time. And sometimes, there'll be some weird things happening at the end of someone talking, and if that's there, I just throw a gate on it, and that normally cleans up everything just fine. Then I run through it, you know, because we're not professional speakers and we don't even pretend like we are.
Right.
So I always have to listen to it all the way through at least once. And so I'll do like broad general edits, like in multi-track mode, where I can do ripple deletes and stuff like that. You know, lets me delete sections from every track all at once.
Right.
And if I need to make more precise edits or silence something, I'll go into waveform mode. So then once I'm done with my edits, as far as the speaking parts are concerned, I exported it as a wave. Again, 441K, I guess.
Right.
16-bit. And then I'll create another multi-track session. I know this seems like a lot of extra steps.
Right.
And it probably is, but yeah, I export everything again,
Right.
into another mono track. And then what I'll do is make another multi-track session, add my music, run auditions, match volume preset to get it to negative 19 LUFS. And then I'll usually use a truncate silence. And so like I have a preset that I made. It took me a while to come up with like the right amount of audio to cut or the silence to cut and still seem like natural conversation. And that's 550 milliseconds, if you're wondering.
Okay.
So yeah, I do that because, like I said, it's after playing around with it for a little bit, it seemed the most natural.
So truncate silence, just so everyone knows, like if there's, for instance, if there's a 2-second gap, which 2 seconds equals 2,000 milliseconds, it'll cut that 2,000 millisecond space. It'll cut out a bunch of it to make it 550 milliseconds long?
Yep.
Okay.
So anything greater than 550 gets cut to 550.
And does it notice breaths at all? Like, or...
Well, you can set like the floor.
Oh, the noise floor.
So,
or the,
yeah, so I think I have the silence defined as if the signal is below negative 38 dB, and then the audio is identified as above negative 34. So no, it doesn't. It doesn't cut breaths.
Got it.
So yeah, I messed with this. I messed with that for a long time.
Really?
Because I got tired of editing out silences manually. I mean, I suppose that I could talk more, I guess, on my show, but...
Well, no, I mean, you can't control that. Stuff happens, you have silence.
Oh, yeah, if you heard our unedited versions of our episodes, you'd be like, man, it must take you a long time to edit these.
Yeah. I mean, even Barry has some silence now and then, too.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So
turn that fader up, Barry.
Fader's up now. Wait, here's a no way that I like.
No way. You crazy?
Oh, no, that's the regular one. No way, you crazy. Here's the other one.
No way.
That's a great one.
No way.
Yeah, anyway. All right, so you truncate the silence. So you export it out of your first audition session into a mono file, 16-bit 44.1, and then you start a new audition setting, you put that mono track in, and that's when you add your music and you truncate the silence and you match levels.
Yeah. So like the reason I do that is because all my audio bumpers and clips are at 44, 1K. So that's pretty much why I do that. There's probably an easier way to do it, but I haven't tried to figure it out yet.
Well, I'll tell you, I do a very similar thing as you, because to me, it just seems like two different steps. And I don't mind doing two different steps because a very similar reason as you. So I guess the way you could do it all in one session is if you brought all your sound clips and your bumpers into the first main session. But that's not so easy because you can't exactly level things against each other as easily because all the voices are on several different tracks. So how do you level those two tracks against all the rest? It's not quite that simple. So,
Yeah, so I have my music and all that stuff it's already set at everything it needs to be. The fades are more or less already there. Right. So so when I do that second step, I can just throw my music on there and then it's done. So I'm like you, I don't mind that extra step.
Right. And there is something to... So, here's a question for you then. In the second session you do, where you bring in your mono file, and I hear you vaping over there.
Oh, I forgot to hit mute.
Oh, it's okay. I hear things. You know that. You know how we do it. Anyway, the second session, do you do any like EQ and compression on the voice there, or on the whole track there, like mastering stuff?
No, because basically Skype already compresses everything a lot. Well, not a lot, but enough.
Yes. For the most part.
I have had to do it occasionally, but it's only when I have somebody on a phone. Like if because we do cast interviews, and we also interview people that make stuff in our community. So mask makers and prop makers and people like that. So, they're not rocking the awesome, magnificent ATR 2005. They're usually on a cell phone or something like that. So that would be like the only time that I would run a compressor. And I don't even do that in Audition. I actually, the couple times that I have had to do it, I have run it through, oh my gosh.
Auphonic?
Yes. Yeah, I've run it through Auphonic.
A phone call? Or is it the phone call mixed with all your voices too?
Yeah, because the recorder that I use will only break it up into 2 tracks, and one of those tracks is me, so everybody else is on the other one. Got it.
So, because I was going to say, I've taken, when I produce shows, I can actually record a phone call on its own track. I've taken a track with a phone call on it and put it through Auphonic, and man, it just brings up all the noise like you really can't do that. Like all the spaces when the guy's not talking or the girl's not talking, it'll bring it up. It's like, shh.
So I don't do that until after I've already done the edits and exported it. That sounds kind of weird, but at that point I've already removed all the background noise. So
right.
So it doesn't have that problem usually.
Yeah. Well, plus when the person on the phone is not speaking, another voice is speaking.
Yeah.
So plus, Auphonic learns that. Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, I think those more often than not have gates put on them too. Like I said, I don't use a gate all the time. I only use it when the noise reduction doesn't get everything. Which Audition's noise reduction is pretty good, so I rarely have to use a gate. So it's not very often. And as far as EQ, no, I don't use any EQ. Like it's the last episode you did for me right now today.
Right, exactly.
We try very hard to make sure. That episode was with Mary.
Yes,
what's her
Mary Mazurek.
Yeah. So we kind of take her approach to that, and maybe we still don't sound as good as she does, but that normally saves me from having to mess with the EQ a whole lot. I've done it occasionally, but usually I don't touch it.
Yeah, well, that's the one thing about the ATR 2005 and the 2100. That's the type of microphone that you can kind of just use it flat if you really need to. Like, it might not be as crisp as it could be or airy, or it might not be like, you can usually use EQ to spice up a microphone sound, right? But these mics are close enough that if you don't process them, I mean, most people aren't even going to notice, actually. Yeah,
and that's honestly why I don't bother with it. I mean, again, occasionally there will be times where I feel like I have to, but as a general rule, I do as little processing as possible. Plus, like, I want my show to sound like you are sitting in the room with us, listening, because a lot of our fans even describe it that way. Hey, it's like popping a beer with my buddies, shooting the breeze about these films. And so, like, if I'm sitting in the room with you, I'm not going to have a very bass-heavy voice. I'm just not. Right. I was not blessed with the radio announcer voice, and so I don't try to give myself that, with EQ or anything like that. So, yeah, I don't really mess with it a whole lot.
Right. Now, a really important question. In the Friday the 13th movies, when they like kill someone and blood sprays everywhere, is it true that they use chocolate and then they do something with the film to make it look like blood?
No, they use fake blood. At least, yeah. You're probably thinking of like some of the older horror films. Like I know some of the old Dracula movies may have used something like that, like the old Hammer films,
like black and white, probably,
like
right?
Christopher Lee days.
Oh,
and then when they went to color, like the blood looks so orange because I guess the MPAA, if they were even a thing back then, didn't like the blood to look too real.
Oh.
So it's like really like it looks more like hydraulic fluid to me.
Interesting. Did you ever see the band Gwar?
Yes, I've seen them in concert.
Okay. There you go. See, and if you're listening to this, you don't know who Gwar is, just look them up on YouTube.
They are. I am not a huge fan of them, but they are a very acquired taste. They're not terrible, but they're definitely an acquired taste.
Well, I've never even thought of them like, okay, they're a band and they wear these crazy costumes and they actually like kill things on, like it's fake, it's all fake, but they kill things on stage and blood flows everywhere. They had a meat grinder on one tour where they would just stuff things into, it's a giant meat grinder and just blood would spew out the side and all over the crowd. Like that's the fun of going to see Gwar is you're going to get covered with fake blood. But I never looked at them and said, "Oh, are they a good band or not?" I never even cared about the music.
Yeah, I mean, again, they're not terrible, but like they're definitely not a go-to for me.
Yeah. Anyway, so now when you're editing, so when you in your second session of Audition, when you export it as an MP3 and it's done, right?
Yeah, yep, it's done. And luckily Audition, like some people, they'll import their stuff into iTunes to get it to encode the MP3
right
to make it small. But Audition luckily uses the what's it called, the Fraunheimer MP3 encoder.
Okay.
So it already makes the file small. So like, I don't know, a 45, 50-minute show is like 20, 25, 30 megabytes. So
right.
I like to get my stuff as small as possible, but keeping, decent sound quality. So I'll export it at 44.1K at 96 kilobits per second or whatever.
96.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, mono at 96.
Yeah, mono at 96.
Yeah, so that's a little bit higher resolution than average, actually. 64 is average for mono.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, average meaning, like if you take the standard, quote unquote CD quality MP3, which is 128 kbps, but that's stereo. So if you're going mono, you take half that, 64. So it's 64 mono is the same resolution as 128 stereo.
Yeah.
So you're 96 mono, so you're the equivalent of 192 stereo, which is, a little bit above average. So you could probably go down to 64 and still sound really good. And then the file would be even smaller.
I'm going to check that out.
There you go. So, all right. So then you do your tagging and uploading and all that stuff. You've never had any training in audio, right?
No, but as I alluded to like way back, I used to, and when I say this, I did not record music like you did, but I've always messed around with audio stuff and video stuff. So, I mean, it's just something I've been doing since I was a kid anyway.
Right.
And I mean, I'm not like some of the other folks you've had on this show, like Daniel J. Lewis and Dave Jackson and the rest of them. But, I do I want everything to stay simple because I have 4 kids, so I don't have a lot of time to devote to sit here and mess with this much. So I make sure my workflow is as simple as I can get it. And plus, again, I have 4 kids, so that means I don't have a lot of money that I can throw at this hobby.
Yeah.
So
you're doing it very practically, which is what most podcasters do, right? Most podcasters aren't going to, invest a lot of time in training their ears to hear frequencies and buy plugins and sit there for 4 hours and mess with an EQ. You're doing it very practically. And it's cool that you're into the whole recording and video, and you're techie like that, which is good. And then it just comes down to your ear. So what to you sounds bad? Like when you hear something and be like, oh, that doesn't sound good. What don't you like?
I mean, I really hate it when there's excessive background noise, because I mean most of the software that really everybody uses to podcast has some sort of gate or noise removal. It's like, dude, take the 5 seconds and remove the noise if you can't afford to have dedicated studio space. And plus, like, we are not perfect with mic control, but I try to, if I cough in the recording, I make sure I cut it out later. I try to mute myself when I'm going to do that, but it's I don't have the best stuff. So for me, I need to make the best of what I have. And since there are some things that I can control without spending a lot of money, I try to control those things. Like my mute button, I use it a lot when we're doing our show, because the less time I have to spend in post fixing stupid stuff like that, I just don't like doing it. I will if I have to, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I just wish podcasters would take the time to edit their stuff.
Right.
I mean, it's not hard to do basic editing. Like, nobody wants to sit there for hours and hours and edit. I get that, because I don't want to either. But at least edit a little bit, please.
Yeah.
And I will probably listen to your show, because that's a make or break for me. Like, you could have the best content in the whole world. Like, your content could change my life tomorrow, but I would never hear it because you sound like crap.
Yeah. So I want to ask you about a little more about editing, but do you have any questions, like as far as your setup or your sound, or any questions you have, or anything you were wondering how to do better or anything like that?
I wish somebody would make a tutorial on how to do a mix minus for my specific mixer.
Okay.
No, I mean, like I said, I did get it set up and working once or twice, but given the fact that I have to tear down so much, I don't even bother unless I have to.
I'm thinking, what if you can set up the cable, like what if you can set everything up and then unplug the cables, unplug like part of the cables, like leave everything connected to the mixer, maybe just get like a big box or something, so you can put the mixer in the box with all the cables still attached to it. So then when you pull it out of the box, at least half the cables will be plugged in. Then you just need to plug into the other computer and maybe to your digital recorder. You know what I mean? I mean, that's
not a terrible...
Total
That's not
hack
a terrible idea.
Solution.
And you know what? I work with wiring for a living. I build radar systems for the Navy, so I wire stuff up all the time, and I bundle wires together. You'd think that I probably would have applied some of my work knowledge to my home studio knowledge.
Interesting.
That is a very good point. I will definitely look into doing that from now on, because I would like us to sound better, and I know that we would if I did the mix minus. So yeah, I'm going to do that.
Interesting. And do you ever run your entire show through Auphonic, or is it just if there's someone on the phone?
If there's someone on the phone. To be honest, I haven't had that good experience with Auphonic. Granted, I haven't used it a whole lot, but I'd say about 50% of the time when I run something through Auphonic, it comes out worse than it went in.
In what way?
Let's see. The last one that I did was the one we did on the Google Hangouts on Air, and I ran that through it, and like it came out sounding really distorted and garbled. It was weird. Like, I've never heard Auphonic do that before, but maybe it was a glitch that one time. I don't know, because ordinarily I don't have a problem with it, but I don't use it as much as other people do. So
right.
I don't have a very big base to go on.
Right. Yeah, I mean, look, Auphonic is a good tool. It's what it's like any tool. It doesn't apply to every situation, and it's not a one tool does all, you know?
Yeah.
It's just not. I mean, look, I talked with Georg on the show a few episodes ago. I talked to him about a sound clip that I put through Auphonic, and it was this sound clip that the hosts of the show were in a conference room right next to a window, right next to a street, and every now and then a truck or a motorcycle would go by, and it brought up the trucks and motorcycles to the level of a person speaking at points, and which is horrendous, like unusable,
Yeah.
And he was surprised. He said, "Really?" He's like, "Oh." Because it's supposed to know the difference between voices and sounds, and it's supposed to be intelligent, which it is intelligent, but nothing's perfect. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and probably I need to mess around with it more, because the couple times that it has worked for me, like it has worked, like it's saved me lots of hours of messing around with the file in Audition. But then other times it's like, this sounds worse than it did before. Even though I feel like I use the same settings most of all the times that I've used it. So I don't know.
Right? Well, that's interesting. So what are a couple fun facts about Friday the 13th that I wouldn't know?
That you wouldn't know? It depends.
I don't know much, by the way.
Oh, okay. Here's a fun one. The guy who played Jason in Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter,
right?
He was John Wayne's stuntman for like 15 years. Ted White.
Really?
Really great guy. Awesome to talk to. You talk to that man, he's got stories about going hunting with Clark Gable and making Corey Feldman puke all over himself during the shooting. Because Corey Feldman's in that film too with him. That Friday the 13th movie. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. But yeah, man, talking to him, it's like talking to your granddad who's got all these stories to tell you. Great guy.
Interesting. That's cool. See, I didn't know that. And did a different person play Jason in every movie, or some people played Jason in a couple of the films?
There's only been one person that ever reprised the role in more than one movie, and that's Kane Hodder. He played Jason in Part 7, 8, 9, and 10. But otherwise, it's been someone different every other movie.
Interesting.
Yeah.
There you go. Some fun facts for you Friday the 13th fans. Well, this has been awesome, man. I really appreciate you being with me on the show and kind of stepping us through your process. Again, you're doing it very practically, and you're making sure along the way that you don't screw it up, and that's awesome. I mean, I think fine-tuning your ears will come with time, and like you said, maybe this next show or maybe in the future you'll have more time to spend more time on it. But I think what you're doing is awesome, and so keep up the good work, man.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm glad to be now counted among all these great podcasters on this show. So I appreciate you talking a little old me.
Oh, there you go. Well, you know what? It's awesome. I love it. I love it every time because, we can have the experts on, we can have audio engineers, and that's great. And that's mostly what we have. But breaking it down and really figuring out what people are doing and how they're doing it and their attitude towards things is also very helpful. So thank you, Chris Saunders, host of Return to Camp Blood, which if you're into Friday the 13th movies, it's a fan podcast that you can't miss. What's your website, by the way, Chris?
CampBloodPodcast.com.
There you go. It'll be in the show notes. Thanks for listening, everybody. We really appreciate you tuning into the Podcast Engineering Show. And of course, until next time, sound great. Yeah!
Always wanted to do that.
You walk away from me well, and you can't play that part so well. Why do you play it out on me now? You like to lose control.